All right, 1 second here. All right, welcome everyone to this class on Pirke Avos, Ethics for Fathers, as it's known. Again, welcome everyone. This class on Pirke Avos, Ethics for Fathers. We are reading by chapter 2, Mishna 13. Still working on Mishna 13. And this is part 25, probably part 26 and part 27. See how far it goes. And the Mishnah said, we're going to hit the last part. Or almost the last part of the Mishnah. Mishna said to them, go out and discern which is the proper way, which a man should cling, person should cling. Rabbi Lezer says a good eye. Rabbi Yeshua says a good friend. Rabbi Yossi says a good neighbor. Rabbi Shimon says one who considers the outcome of a deed. And that's what we've been speaking about for the last number of weeks. And now we're going to come along and say the name of Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar says a good heart, right? Question here is, what does it mean? What does it mean over here to have a good heart? So the heart, as we understand, heart's the source allows to do that we choose, make decisions, meaning there's always a heart mind disconnect, right? The mind may tell you this is what you should do, this is good for you, or maybe God forbid, maybe it's something bad, the person doesn't care, maybe, right? But let's say, the mind try and convince a person to either do a good thing or a bad thing, right? Or let's say a mind knows what person should do. We may be, our inclination can take over other things, but in essence, our mind should know what we should do. Now, what's the problem? The heart desires. The heart covets. So the heart is obviously the main part of the body. And if the heart doesn't function properly, the rest of the body, right? This is Science 101A or biology, let's say biology 101A. The heart doesn't function right, you don't function. There are blood clots, other things that weaken the heart, whatever it may be. So the heart is the source, but the heart is, it's the source of life, but it's also the source of desire. The heart can desire, and we can go after things that are bad for us. Even if our mind says, no, this is really, this is the path I have to do. This is what this is where I have to go. The heart can say, nah, don't worry about it. No one's going to see you anyway. You can do what you want. Why be an absolute fanatic? Certainly I've been accused of many times. Why be a fanatic? Be normal. Just do what everyone else does. What's the big deal? What's the big deal? The majority of people are not like you, right? So the heart can say, you know what? I want to be normal. I want to fit in. I want to do what everyone else does. Yeah, what's the problem? The mind says no. The mind says not right. The mind says this is going to damage you. And the heart says, come on, just one thing. One little thing over here. The heart has a lot of power. Not just physical power. The heart has power. The heart has power in the sense that, it can cause a person to do things. Do things it doesn't want to do. So the mind has to try and convince the heart. And the heart is going to work very hard to do what it wants, even if it's negative, even if it causes the person damage, right? For instance, person just, ate a few sweets. Now he says, listen, got cake, ice cream, something comes in front of them. And what happens? They turn to mush. No pun intended. They like it. They want it. It's not going to be good for you. But so the mind will say, nah, you shouldn't do it. Shouldn't even have a little piece because then you want to have more. The heart's going to say, yeah, you worry about it tomorrow. You go work out tomorrow. You'll take care of it. And it's enticing. A lot of things a person does wrong. It doesn't mean it's not fun. Plenty of things are enticing. Doesn't mean I should do it. Right? So a person always has to ask themselves. They always have to ask themselves that, is this good for me? Is this good for my soul? Is it bad for my soul? Right? They have to ask that question. Now, if it's bad, if they know it's bad, so why are they going to do it? Why would they do it? What simple explanation? Because it's fun. Why not? Right? Okay, so it might damage me today. Tomorrow's another day. But when a person gives in to temptation, gives into their evil inclination, their animalistic sides, very hard to stop. Right? Spoke a few weeks back, duties of the heart. I mentioned one thing in the gate of self-accounting. Chapter 3. The Pirke Avos, duties of the heart, says like this. He says, you want to serve God properly. You want this inner service. When's it going to be unattainable? He has to detach himself from any animalistic desires, right? First thing, he's got to go against his animalistic side, which everybody has, right? Jew and non-Jew. We have an animalistic side to our soul. Then he says you got to control your instincts. And then you have to restrain your emotions. And then God is giving you body, limbs, right, according to his ability. So it's easier to fulfill them. In other words, you want to use it properly. But what does he say? Let's go back. He says, you want to be able to serve God properly. Your insides, so to speak, you want to go in the right direction. You have to detach yourself from animalistic desires. You have to control your instincts, restrain emotion. All right, who's signing up? Very hard. You got, a person's going to say, and I've heard this a number of times. People are going to say, guess what? This is who I am. You put food in front of me, I'll eat it. No self-control, no discipline. Right? So they'll go according to what their animalistic desires tell them. What does that mean? That means not only they have no self-control, but they're going to be thrown around this world like ping pong. They're going to be knocked around because they're not in control. So what does the Pirke Avos there say? He says you got to control your animalistic desires. Doesn't mean shut them down. I mean, how can you shut down the fact that you're hungry? How can you shut down, basic things we have to do? We have to function in this world. But there are things that are bad. But he says if you don't control that, you don't control your instincts, and you don't restrain your emotions, you're never going to be able to serve God properly. Now, that's a loaded statement. Why do I say it's a loaded statement? Because everyone's going to say, or some will say, but we live in this world. If I live in this world, how is it possible to control my thoughts? It's possible. Totally possible. Is it hard? Yeah, it might be hard because we've been conditioned a certain way. We have baggage. We all have baggage. What we've seen, what we've done becomes part of our psyche. As we always say, once it's part of your psyche, isn't it hard to fight? Sure. Well, I'll mention again. I spoke about this last year, a few years ago. basketball player, live streaming a video game, and he makes an anti-Semitic statement. Right? He got penalized. Anyway, he's injured anyway. He wasn't going to get paid. I mean, he might have got paid. Right? He totally might have got paid, but he was injured, so they suspended him for the rest of the season. Okay. Comes on, Julian Edelman. Right? Used to be wide receiver for the Patriots. Father's Jewish, mother's not. So it's really not Jewish, but okay. So what does he do? So he says, okay, I'm in Miami a lot. Maybe you come down, Friday night meal. You come down for a Shabbos meal. He's not a religious Jew. First of all, he's not even Jewish, but we're not even going to go there. Right? He's not a religious Jew. So what's he going to do? Make some chicken, a little bit of kugel. Right? He's going to tell this guy, no, come on, aren't Jews great? Yeah, give him gefilte fish. give him the gefilte fish with jelly. And tell him you got to eat it. The whole thing, forget it. He's going to say, oh, Jews, come on. I don't have anything to do with that. So this guy doesn't know anything about anything. Mr. Edelman, let him play football and talk about that. Good, that's what he knows. Judaism, he doesn't know. That's pretty clear. That's pretty clear from what he says. But he's going to say, okay, this guy's now going to come, have a Shabbos meal, quote unquote, and now he's going to love Jews? What happened over here? What happened? Said, oh, it's a slip of the tongue. I didn't really mean it, and I'm so sorry, and blah, blah, blah. But it's not a slip of the tongue. Why is it not a slip of the tongue? It's not a slip of the tongue for one very simple reason. Because he thought about this. This is what he believes. This is what he believes. He doesn't like Jews. That's what he hopes. What? For whatever reason, doesn't matter. But it's inside of him. It's inside. All of a sudden, oops. Person said it. Person made the statement. Or had a whole diatribe, whatever it is. Doesn't matter. He made a statement. He got caught. Live streaming this video game. He got caught. Okay. You don't think that's what he thinks? That's what he thinks. How do I know? How am I so confident I know? Because it's very simple. Once the person, and this is brought down a number of Torah sources. Once a person thinks something, could be bad, could be good, it can be, it gets inside of a system. And if a person thinks about it more, it's more absorbed in a person's inside. Now that means it's sitting there. It's sitting there, part of our conscience. Now, when does it manifest itself? Right? Get a little bit deeper. When does it come out? May never come out, or maybe come out in certain circumstances. But it's there. It doesn't disappear. So therefore, if a person makes a statement, and it could be a negative statement, let's say, he makes a racist statement. He makes a racist. We're not saying he's got this whole philosophical outlook like Whoopi Goldberg, right? This warped, skewed outlook, that the Holocaust was not a systematic wipeout of a nation. I don't know. I guess we're not a nation. We're not a race, right? According to her. I mean, I do understand where she's coming from. I'm not going to give her any, I'm speaking about her too much here, right? Okay, so her view is totally skewed. I said it more than once. Totally skewed, totally wrong. Okay. She got a lot of flack for it, which she deserved. I don't think there's any question about that. So that's basing, a belief system on something that's totally wrong. So we're not asking this guy what he, what's behind what he thinks. He made a statement. He made an anti-Semitic statement going to everybody. Okay. Now, if that's true, which it is, because he got live video, he got caught, saying it. So according to Jewish sources, what happened? He must have thought that before. It didn't just come out of thin air. He must have thought it again. Did he think about it for hours, for days, for weeks? I don't know. I'm not in his head. Doesn't really matter. He thought about it enough, it became part of his psyche. Once it became part of his psyche, it's deep in his conscience. If it's deep in a person's conscience, doesn't mean it comes out straight away. It could very well, person could be under pressure, different things. They make a statement. Not thinking right. They're angry, right? Let's say. They make a statement. Now, that statement could be totally wrong, could be totally racist, could be any number of things. But you can't say, oh, that's a slip of the tongue. I didn't mean to say it. No, we mentioned this many times, in Pirke Avos. Many, many times, once a person thinks something or they see something, it becomes part of their inner psyche. That image never goes away. It might be buried for a long time. It's there. Right? The soul absorbed it. Now to get rid of it, that's a whole discussion. How you get rid of these negative things. Okay, so that's a different discussion. But a person can never make the statement and say, I never thought of such a thing. I never heard of such a thing. Why? Because they said it. Why'd they say it? Oh, so sorry. It was a slip of the tongue. Again, I'm not talking about making up a whole philosophical outlook about what they said. That doesn't matter. Right? We're not interested. They made the statement. Made a statement. He didn't deny it. He can't deny it. Right? He didn't deny it. So the point is, it's part of him. So you're going to say, once it's us. The point is, once it's part of a person, it's very hard to fight against. Especially if it's something negative. We all have negative character traits, right? We all have negative character traits. So if that's true, how do I beat them? How do I get rid of them? Oh, you got to work hard. You got to work very hard over here. Saw something earlier. My Rebbe put out on the Parsha. 1 second, let me bring it up here. He said an amazing thing. He said it like this. If I bring it up here 1 second. He was talking about the paraduma that we read about today, the red heifer. And one of the things he said was, he was talking about the fact, that what does the red heifer do? What essentially does the red heifer do? You take the red heifer, you take the ashes. Again, it has to be totally red, can never be worked. And someone became impure. You take these ashes, the Kohen, the priest takes the ashes, puts it on the person. The person becomes pure, the priest becomes impure. Makes no sense. No sense logically. It's a contradiction in terms. So it says King Solomon, wisest of all men, that he had, some difficulty trying to understand. Right? Go figure. Totally contradiction. Now, what did my Rebbe here say? He said there's a hint over here. There's a hint that what do the ashes do? They come to purify. In other words, you take the ashes, you mix them with water from, let's say, a spring, or right? You take water from, let's say, a spring, and through that the person becomes pure. You take the ashes, you mix it with the water. So my Rebbe says, this is something for every person, right? In other words, the person is dirty, and they blacken themselves, right? Just like ashes do. You put ashes on, what it's going to do. I mean, you want to do it when it's piping hot, you get burned. That's not such a good idea. Nonetheless, he says, if you mix it with water, which is, what's the water? What's the water? So he says at the hint over here, water represents Torah. Right? Water is a symbol of Torah. Because the Gemara says, ain't my Torah. No water except for Torah. It's whatever it's compared. Why? Because water purifies. Right? A woman every month has to go to the mikvah, water to purify herself. Right? From impurity. So he says, I remember I heard from my Rebbe's son-in-law, Rav Moshe Schneider, blessed memory, his son-in-law, Rabbi Zadel, I'll probably butcher the name, Siamatitsky. That was his name. Rav Zadel Siamatitsky. He taught in the yeshiva. My Rebbe, was younger, when he was a student there. What did he say? He said, I remember he said this probably 75 years ago, more, probably 80 years ago, something like that. My Rebbe would say, that part of my memory is still good. He asked me what I had for lunch, probably wouldn't remember. Right? So I once asked him, he said, don't ask me, I don't remember. Right? Any case, what did he say? What did Rabbi Zadel Stiamatsky, Stiamatitsky, a blessed memory. What did he say? What did he say? He said like this. He said, what does learning Torah do? Learning Torah, person learns a lot of Torah, purifies, right? Just like a mikveh. Just like going into a mikveh, has the power to purify in a major way. Why? Because the words of Torah are like fire. They're like absolute fire. And they purify like libun. What's libun? Let's say a person traced up a pot. They made a pot, not kosher now. So what do? You gotta make it kosher. How do you make it kosher? It has to go through fire, whatever it was used through. So let's say this pot went through fire. It's got to go through fire to be purified, right? To make it kosher again. So my Rebbe says, in the name of Reb Zedel Siamatitsky, he says, fire purifies, right? It purifies these impurities. Let's say from this pot or whatever it is. And it doesn't, so once the fire comes, you did it right, you get rid of it. You get rid of the impurity. Right? In other words, it totally wipes it out. Totally wipes it out. So sin doesn't remain any, the sin, the impurity is gone. He says, so too, a person learns a lot of Torah. It makes such an impression, it can totally wipe out sin. Can totally wipe out sin. And he says that's the level the highest level of purification. Right? Highest level of purification is what? It's mikvah, it's water. Right? It's going through water. Right? But interesting enough, over here, what do I need? I need fire. I need fire to purify a person. You can say fire. What type of fire? Right? So he's saying the fire of Torah, of learning Torah, that purifies. That gets rid of all the impurities. Because the Gemara says, person's thinking about sinning, God forbid. What's the first thing you should do? You say the Shema. Take on the yoke of heaven. If that doesn't work, what do? You take the evil inclination, the stadio. You learn to overcome that evil inclination. That doesn't work. You think of the day of the last day of your life, and the fact that you're going to have to answer to the King of Kings. Well, let's go back. Person's in the thrust of wanting to do X sin, whatever it is. Is a person really gonna go to a study hall and learn? That's what he's gonna do, right? He's gonna go to this, let's say he doesn't have a study hall where he lives. No, that's a good question. He doesn't have anywhere to go. Let's say he did. Let's just say for argument's sake he did. Person's in the thrust of whatever sin. He's gonna sit there and run to the study hall. He's in the thrust of doing it. He's right in the middle. Very hard to imagine. But what's he saying over here? What's the power of Torah? He said the power of Torah is something we can't imagine. We can't imagine how powerful it is. So he's saying like this. He's saying that the power of Torah is so strong. And if a person learns a lot of it, it's going to make such an impression, it's going to wipe out 100% the sin. It's a mind-boggling idea. Totally wipe out the sin. He said it wipes out the sin like fire. Right? And that's the highest level. That's the highest level of repentance over here. Right? It's going to the mikveh. What do you call it? Cleansing. Right? Of being cleansed. Now, a person's going to say that, you're right. Torah is very powerful. Learning Torah, you get a lot of geschmack, get a lot of enjoyment. You listen, it inspires you, very good. Question is, does it inspire us to stop sinning? Why doesn't it stop us? Why do we get caught up in this world? The Ramchal says in Path of the Just, we're born in this world to toil. We're born in this world to struggle. Very true. And there's a lot of things we get beaten down in life and all kinds of things. So you're going to say, but if I focus on Torah, if I really focus on Torah, is that going to take it away? Is that going to take away the test? Not going to take away the test. We're going to be tested on a daily basis. We pray every day. Every person, every Jew prays every day. God should not bring me to what? We shouldn't be brought to trials and tribulations. Catch 22 is if I don't have trials and tribulations, I don't grow. So you need them. That brings spiritual growth. That's 100% true. But at the same time, even if it brings spiritual growth, am I able to use what I learned to offset what potentially wrong I could do? So someone's got to say, Rabbi, that's great. Great philosophical outlook. What about putting it into action? So I'll tell you, whatever trials we have, whatever we go through, if our minds was totally immersed in Torah at all times, not part of the time, not a quarter of the time, right? The idea is that, we're very far away. 100%, we're very far away. So if that's true, how do I fix that? How do I allow Torah to have such an effect? Right, my Rebbe says, that's the power of Torah. That's what it can do. Can it overcome everything? No. Can it, a person has mental illness, can it overcome it? No. I would say 80% maybe, depends what the mental illness is. We're not going there. The point is, it's about outlook, it's how I see things. But the problem is, everybody will say, life is so hard, life is complex. Day in and day out, we're tested. We're tested 70, 80 times an hour. We have mood swings all the time. We have good things, bad things. Whatever. We have difficulty. But you see, when does a person sin? A person sins when their mind is open. There are plenty, a person will say, I have no time to learn. I'm too busy working. Other thing, I have no time to learn. Yeah, let me take a look at your smartphone. Let me see what you've been doing, over the hours. How many times did you look? You watched a short video. You sent an email, right? You looked at something on Facebook. Who knows what, right? So you say, I don't have time. Let's add up all the wasted time. People would be surprised. You add up all the wasted time, seconds here, minutes there. Guess what? It's going to add up. It's totally going to add up. Right? A person has to be immersed. They have to. It's not something, comes overnight. I've heard many people say, well, I tried this, didn't work. You try hard enough. I prayed, I didn't get my prayers answered. Yeah, maybe God said no. Maybe God said, well, we're going to have to wait. Maybe, whatever it is. We live in an instantaneous generation. Person expects everything to be handed to them on a platter when it doesn't work or something goes wrong. We get thrown off. Totally thrown off. So you have to look at life in a totally different way. And if a person was steeped in it so much, i.e. in Torah, you don't have time to think about anything else. It's true. You have to function, deal with family and work, all kinds of things. True. Right? 100% that's true. You have to think of things in a Torah way. Your mind should be busy with Torah, busy with mitzvahs. Shouldn't have free time. I mean, imagine people say, oh, I don't have time for this, time for that. Let's go back 100 years. You know what laundry, doing laundry was like? The whole day affair. Go down to the river, scrub this, the whole day. Today, you stick it in the washing machine, boom. 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, it's done. Stick it in the dryer, hang it out. You save a tremendous amount of time. So the Industrial Revolution and everything associated with it, the last 20 years, 50 years, things have gone rapidly, much quicker. We have all these inventions, all these great things to make our lives easier. Did it make us wiser? Did it make us more holy? It took away so much time to do things. Just think of laundry as an example. You have 1 day a week. You just spent all your time doing that. 1 day a week. So let's analyze. I don't really have free time. You have plenty of free time. You got plenty of free time. I say it's hard. I got to concentrate. You got to find time. Men have to have fixed times to learn. Women need to learn what they need to learn. Should also live inspired. But again, what are people going to say? It's so darn hard. Okay. You're right. But that, person just throws in the towel and says, what can I do? It's hard. You think it's been easy? Life is hard. But what's the point over here? Right? Let me get back to my original point. Once something is part of our psyche, it's part of our insides. If it's bad, you gotta get rid of it. You gotta work hard to get rid of it. Totally uproot it. So my Rebbe says, how are you gonna do that? You gotta learn a heck of a lot of Torah. Heck of a lot of Torah is gonna wipe it out. Right? Totally wipe it out. That's an amazing thing. It's giving you a new lease on life. Well, again, someone's like, I learned a lot of Torah, it didn't help. It's something you have to work at. Changing your mindset is something that can take a long time to work at. Because, we're wired a certain way. We do things a certain way. Some people are extremely rigid. They don't want to go outside. Certain things that they do. That's what I do in the morning. That's what I do in the afternoon. Whatever. But there's so many things thrown at us on a daily basis. You don't have that luxury. The luxury you have is you got to concentrate on the Torah that you learn. You got to take the Torah you learn and put it in your heart and have your heart connect to the mind. The mind can say, yeah, I really want to learn Torah. It's like a person will say, what's the difference before Rosh Hashanah, a person going to take on something they want to change, they want to work on. And what's the difference between that and a New Year's resolution? Right? So if someone wants to take on something, they're working hard, they have a plan. How am I going to do this? How am I going to work this out? Right? How am I going to overcome X, Y, or Z? They have to make a plan. You can't just say, well, I'll think about it and whatever happens, happens. No, you got to make a plan. And if you fail, how are you going to counteract it? Right? What are you going to do to make sure you don't fail? Someone takes on a New Year's resolution and they say, you know what? I'm going to work on dieting. Say, great. You're going to work on dieting. What exactly are you doing to start? What are you doing to start? There's nothing. It's just a nice idea. It's a nice idea I had. I want to work on dieting, cutting down on sugar and these other things that are bad for the body. Great. Doesn't mean anything. Person can want to do something, but they have they're not following through. Torah is something you got to follow through. Whether you're a Jew, you're a JIT, a Jew in training, right? Or you're an Ohite, right? You want to put whatever you learn as much as you can, you put into action, right? Does that mean the evil inclination doesn't come and try and trick you? No. A lot of people say, yeah, I want to do this. I want to do it. So what's stopping you? What's stopping a person? There could be legitimate things stopping them. Okay. Does that mean I just, I got a block here? How do I get around it? It's hard. It's very hard. It's very hard to change who we are. Very, very difficult. Says Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, the Muslim movement started the ethics movement in the 1800s. He said, Alavai, you change one bad character trait in your lifetime. One bad character trait. You're going to say, isn't that shooting very low? Rabbi Yisrael Salanter knew. He understood himself. He understood people. Right? He said he wanted to change the world. He found that was too difficult. He said, okay, let me try and change my country. Found that to be too difficult. Let me try and change my city. Found that to be difficult. What about, my neighborhood? Too difficult. My street? Too difficult. My house? Too difficult. Right? Even with all that, he said, I have to change myself. trying to have influence on others, okay. No one's saying not. But he understood, where does the change come from? It comes from within. It comes from within a person. But you're going to say, we're so complex. And we have, we're torn in so many different places. Okay? Well, it's a question of perspective. It's a question, what does the Torah want from me in this, in this situation? It could be very hard. One thing that comes up all the time, we speak about family. Family is very hard. Dealing with different things and what people say and what people do. Very true. But at some point, if it's toxic, a person has to say, okay, this cannot be anymore. I have to, quote unquote, get out of Dodge, or I have to distance myself from such a person because it's bad. The bad is that someone asked me, many years ago, someone said, would you tell people to distance themselves from family? I said, sometimes. That depends. Depends on the situation. It's really bad and it's toxic, yeah. In most cases, when it comes to family, that, especially Christians and this and that, they give them a hard time. Tremendous hard time. Or, they don't want you to be a Jew. Or, for whatever reason. Or they hate Jews. They can hate Jews, be anti-Semites. Heard that a number of times also. Parents, siblings. Jews can have siblings that just, think you're way off the deep end. Not that much different, in that sense. So again, that's a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure because people are going to say, come on, you're different. You change. Why would you do this? You're going to alienate people, especially us. Okay, how long does the person have to hear that? I would say, no, hopefully not very long. Because it gets old, gets stale. It's all your fault. You caused this. You changed. You did. No. You're right. The person says, the Jew says, listen, that was my argument. I'm reconnecting to 3,000 years or more of Jewish history. Other people opted out. Okay. Their choice. Everyone's got free will. I'm reconnecting that chain. No, you've changed. It's your religion. No, still your religion, right? Someone told me the other day, it's like, oh, how was your holiday? Secular Jew says this, right? By Purim. I always laugh when I hear that. How was your holiday? I'm like, you're still Jewish, right? Still Jewish. Well, you know what I meant. Yeah, I know what you meant. They'll say that by Passover, say it by other things, right? So how was it for you? Like, you don't have an obligation. You just pass the buck. No, they don't, they do what they do and that's it. But you're the ones like, and someone admits, which is very rare, very, very rare. They'll say, I'm a fanatic and, I'm breeding fanatics and all this, and I asked them, I said, okay, we're fanatics. Very good. So let me ask you one question. With us fanatics, we have about a 95% success rate of passing Judaism down to the next generation, even 90%. Let's say there's a 10% dropout rate. Let's say. I don't know what the stats are. Let's say it's 10%, right? So I said, we have a 90% success rate. What about in the secular Jewish world? Secular Jewish world, 60-70% intermarriage rate, total disaster. Absolute disaster. Synagogues shutting down left and right, disaster. So they admitted, you're right. Right? They admitted Judaism will survive through you. Okay? Checkmate. They admit it. Very good. Didn't stop them from saying you're a fanatic. And you shouldn't be a fanatic. I said, find me a better system. Find me a better system that works. And what's the answer? You don't have one. It doesn't work. And Judaism is supposed to survive. What would be the point of God taking the Jewish people? At the end of the book of Leviticus, it says, God took out the Jewish people from Egypt to sanctify them, to take them to Mount Sinai to get the Torah. That's why he took them out, not to eat shrimp, not to have bar mitzvahs, more bar than mitzvah. No pun intended. That's where Judaism ends. That wasn't the point to watch Judaism disappear, but that's what's happening. You're going to have a 90% dropout rate that are going to be wiped out spiritually. Some people say a lot of people come back when the Messiah comes, etc. And a lot of the Jewish people will repent. Halavai. I don't see it, but who knows, right? But you get all these people intermarried, wiped off the face of the map spiritually. So what's going to happen to them and their kids? Nothing. Gonzo. I told someone a number of years ago, you look like me. I mean, you got to have a little bit of hair or whatever, but you look like me or you disappear. Those are stats, right? That's what's out there. So, you look at it in those terms. What's the reason it's so successful? That we have the ability to pass it down. I'm not saying there aren't issues. We don't have a perfect system, but okay. Right? Why is that? Because people live it. They believe it. They keep Shabbos. They keep festivals. They send their kids to learn hours upon hours. Again, some may drop out. Okay. I'm not saying the system is perfect, but at the same time, they have a much, much greater success rate. Much greater, nothing to talk about. Not even close. But the tests, there are a lot of tests. 100%. So the hardest part is you're fighting society. You're fighting the fun of what's going on in the world. And that's not such an easy thing. And the reason is because, it's hard to sit and learn all day. It's hard for a kid 11, 12 years old to get home at 5:30 at night. It's hard. There's no question. But they have to be trained. Learning Talmud, not an easy thing. They have to be trained. That's how you're going to perpetuate it. That's the only way. And that's the way it's been. Right? Right? That's the way it's been. And it hasn't been easy. Each generation has their trials. Back in the 1900s, it's all about secular philosophy. Right? That's, socialism, communism, democracy. These things destroyed Judaism. A lot of kids went off reading all kinds of things they shouldn't have read and caused them to go off. But that's not the topic here. The point, get back to my original point here. So I keep sliding away from, is the idea of what's inside a person. What's inside of a person doesn't matter how bad, what they were taught and whatever things they went through, when they were younger. Okay. We all had bad philosophy. We've all had, heard bad language, seen bad things. Does that mean I can't overcome it? Does that mean it's impossible? It's not impossible. We're going to say, how do you erase all that? What did my Rebbe say? Let's just quote it. We'll quote it again. He said, if a person learns a lot, the Torah is going to uproot the mark that all this other stuff, all these sins made, right? This imprint, and it's going to erase it. And he uses a language that's going to erase it 100%. Not 50%, not 30%. Going to erase it 100%. You're going to say, but I have all this, secular knowledge, bad knowledge, things you've seen, things you've done. The person's going to say, there's no hope. Not true. Or Rebbe would say, if you live in the past, you have no future. That doesn't mean I just do whatever I want and say, okay, tomorrow's a new day. You got to take responsibility somewhere. But yeah, a person can be steeped in this stuff for years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. I've had people in their 60s come out of Christianity and say, okay, I got to start again. Got to start fresh. Got to learn everything anew. That's not an easy thing to do. Got to learn Hebrew. Got to go through things in Jewish philosophy. You have to relearn every single verse that the Torah says because you learned it wrong. You were misled. I had someone tell me, their father told us, like, what? You think I've been lied by the church for the last 55 years? Yeah, that's what's happened. Totally lied. This is a very humbling experience. Person all of a sudden, light bulb goes off and they realize, I learned everything wrong. That can destroy a person, demoralize a person, right? Some people makes them stronger. Say, okay, now I have to start from scratch. Now I have to take baby steps. Baby steps. I have to relearn. Isn't there a lot to learn? 100%. There's a ton to learn, ton to relearn, a lot to review, plenty of things to review. What's the problem? We're lazy. We're lazy. We want to learn new things, or necessarily want to review, right? But if you don't review, you won't remember. Torah's not something they say, okay, I have this mnemonic, that mnemonic. I'm going to remember everything. No, you got to constantly keep going over and over. And people say, oh, it's not so much fun to review. Okay. May not be fun. How are you going to grab it? How are you going to be able to do it? Right? So Ramosh Schneider's son-in-law over here is saying that, yeah, you want purity? You want to uproot sin altogether? How are you going to do that? Lots and lots of Torah. That's it. It doesn't sound so exciting. It doesn't sound like, oh, going to be, doing the moonwalk and whistling Dixie and all. It's hard work. The Gemara says you learn Torah makes you weaker. Why does it make you weaker? Because you're using brain cells. And you're using brain cells to think and to analyze and what it means and what's behind it. And there are a lot of things. We just came out of Purim. I mean, some people still recovering. Just came out of Purim. The Purim is so steeped in so many things. So many things, what's going on behind the scenes. In God's name's not even mentioned there. Wasn't an open miracle. The last open miracle was Hanukkah. That's the last open miracle we know about. That was the Maccabees going against the Greeks. And they never should have won. 100 times out of 100, they lose. They should have lost. No underdog over here. They should have lost. Give an example. It's kind of like the Vatican. The Vatican fighting, going to war against America. Hey, you never know. Maybe inside the Vatican, they got nuclear weapons. I don't know. Who knows what they have? They're never going to win. Everybody knows that. No, they're never going to win. Never. Never going to happen. They're going to have a Vietnam over here. They're going to be wiped out. Totally wiped out. So that's what should have happened. That's what should have happened to the Jews. And they didn't. They got rid of them. They got them out. They got rid of their influence. Got them out. But you look at the Purim story and everything that goes on behind the scenes, and each thing behind the scenes is crucial to the downfall of Mr. Haman himself. Mr. Haman himself, you look at all the things and you say, come on, it's a chance. This happened. The other thing happened. The third thing happened. Give one example. Achashverosh is married to Vashti. Who was Vashti? Anyone know who Vashti was? Vashti was the granddaughter of Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar, the famous Babylonian king who destroyed the Beis Hamikdash, destroyed the temple. Now, anybody know what Achashverosh's occupation before she married Vashti? He was a stable boy. He took care of the horses. That's what he did. But guess what? He married into royalty. So he marries into royalty, and he has this party for 180 days, showing all his wealth and showing all his power. And he had some of the vessels of the temple and whatever, showing all his wealth and power. Okay. Where does wealth and power come from? Where did it get solidified from? Right? Where did he get it solidified from? He got his power solidified from who? From the grandfather, from his wife's grandfather. So his power is dependent on him. Sorry, it's dependent on her. Now he wants the queen to come out. Now she has her own power. She totally has her own power. She's royalty. She has to be married to this guy, okay? But she's royalty. So what happens? Everyone's sitting there bragging, our women are the most pretty. And then he's drunk. And he says, what are you talking about? My wife is prettier than all of them. Totally prettier than all of them. They say, okay, if your wife is so pretty, we want to see her. We want to see her in her crown. Just her crown. I.e. without anything else. Not wearing anything else. Now, let's understand. He's a pig. And she's not the most, most virtuous of women. So she would have come. She would have pranced around out there. Why didn't she? First of all, she wanted to teach her husband a lesson, right? To show that he can't just order around or whatever. But at the same time, there are a few things that happened. So Gemara says she had spots on her body. Kind of be a little intimidating, I would think, or embarrassing. You're going to go out and prance in front of everyone. You get all these spots. All these spots. You got measles all over your body that everyone can see. Well, that's not so nice. Yeah. Another Gemara says, or she had to like, one of the angels like put a tail on her or something, right? I don't even take it literally, not literally. Whatever it was, she didn't want to come. She didn't want to come. But sometimes she didn't want to come. Right? What does the Megillah say? Book of Esther says, what? That she delayed in coming. And she said to the chamberlains, tell my husband I'm not coming. Now, who are the chamberlains? The chamberlains are not, royal society. They are totally not royal society. It's like having, I'm going to say, it's having a bunch of servants on the low man of the totem pole, no pun intended here. And you have these people come, and give the king the message. And they give you the king the message, oh, by the way, your wife said she's not coming. And he got burning mad. Burning mad. His commentaries ask, okay, she delayed coming. He's embarrassed. I get it. Right? He told her to come. She doesn't want to come. Why is he burning mad? I understand he's upset. Okay. He wants his wife to come, prove what he said. She doesn't want to come. So there's a power struggle. She's saying, I'm not going to do whatever you want. And he's saying, you have to come. I'm the king. Right? But it went further. First of all, she sends out these chamberlain to give him the message. No, she's not coming. But it was an added message. There was something else she told him. What did she tell him? She tells him, I'm not coming, you stupid stable boy. Now, she reminds him of where he came from. Now, let's understand, there's a power struggle. She's got lineage. She's got a pedigree. She comes from Nebuchadnezzar. She comes from royalty. He took care of the horses. So he's got an ego problem here. And his problem is, I'm legitimate. But you're only legitimate through your wife. But he consolidated power, did these other things, despite his wife, whatever. But he got so rip-roaring mad. Couldn't, he brought in advisors. What are we going to do over here? The last thing he wants to do is kill her. The last thing he wants to do. Why? That's his link to the kingship. He's going to say, I don't need her. He knows the truth. He understands the truth. And what happens? The advisors say, we can't have this. All women are going to do this to our husband. Right? But who says? Just because the queen did it, that means every woman's going to do it? So we do have precedent. There are people, higher up in power did certain things. And society changed. Give one example. John F. Kennedy, one, not necessarily the, most moral of all people. But one of the things he did that changed, a lot of things in America was, everyone used to wear hats, top hats, when they went out. And for some reason, he decided, I'm going to take it off. What do I need to wear a top hat for? Or any type of hat. You know what? Society followed suit. You didn't see top hats anymore. You see, in England, go to the races, people wear ascots, different things. Okay. But in America, you see people wearing hats, maybe by the Kentucky Derby a little bit. I don't know. But in general, that whole thing went away. Totally went away. Who's JFK? What the world to see? All of a sudden, he dictates what society does. Can happen. Right? Just use that as an example. Right? But what happened over here? So that's the question. That's the question that's asked. So even if she didn't come, she's the queen. Who says all women are going to do this to her husband? They're going to embarrass their husband such a. Who says? She did it. Everyone's going to follow suit. And everyone's going to say, yeah, we're going to do exactly what Vashti said. Good question. Legitimate question. In any case, he decides through his advisors, he's going to kill her. He's going to kill her. Can't have this going on. They convince him. Very good. So what happens? They kill her. And now he gets depressed. Oh, I can't believe I killed Vashti. Got to find a replacement. Who does that replacement become? Esther. Mordecai hid her for a number of months. They finally found her. They didn't give her, she refused to take any makeup. Everyone else was in bathing oil and all kinds of things for 6 months to make them look so good. She refused, and she found, and he loved her. He saw her, he loved her, and that was it. So she's in the palace. She's in the palace when these other things happen. That's just one thing. That's just one thing. So there are a lot of things. So now you look at it and say, wow, this is really such a deep thing. What we see doesn't what we see doesn't matter over here. You got to dig. You got to understand there's a lot. There's a lot in mitzvahs that we uncover, that we understand, that we learn, that can change us. 100%. That can change us, in a major way. But again, it's not intellectual stimulation. It's not just I'm taking a course, quote unquote, in Talmud, I'm going to get a grade on it, or in Jewish history, or, whatever. It's an all-encompassing type of thing. It's a very important thing over here because it's going to change who we are. Got to learn Jewish law, have to learn Chumash, the 5 books of Moses, right? Have to learn Musar, Jewish history. Like, you have to learn all this stuff. Not speaking Lashon Hara, there's a lot to learn. You can say, but I don't have so much time. Okay, it's a different issue, right? You got to learn as much as we can. But the point is, when a person has free time, they have to be immersed. They have to be immersed learning, learning Musar, learning ethics, understanding what's right to do, what's not right to do, and then go out and do it, and then go out and change. But these are hard things. I'm not even talking, high spiritual levels here. These are basic things we have to do. We have to eradicate bad habits. We have to pull ourselves out of situations that are bad, that could be toxic. That's not a third and long. That's not a punt over here. There are things, person will say, well, I'll do anything for the family. Well, if they start making fun of you and they continue to make fun of you and they give you a hard time, there's always so much a person can take. So I would say sometimes you have to cut your losses. We say family's so important. Okay. Right? Kaufman holds family can be an albatross, a total albatross, meaning that, you're born into a certain family, you have certain siblings. Okay. You have whatever connection that you have, but it can be bad. It can be toxic, in many ways. Say, but I don't want to be accused of breaking up the family. Guess what? Torah mitzvahs come at a price. Why do I say it comes at a price? Because whatever you do, it's going to take effort. It's going to take money. It's going to take time. And there are repercussions that could happen. Okay. I get this question a lot. I said something and someone else came back and started saying all these things against God, all these things against Torah, my libel. No. Someone comes to you and say, I think the Torah is anti-pig. You say, wow, the Torah says you can't eat pig. So you get a problem with what the Torah says. I think Torah is anti-women. Well, it's really not. You have to understand it. And I think, and they're going on and on, all these blasphemous things. Is that your problem? No. Does that put in a stumbling block in front of someone? No. Why not? Because they have free choice. They can say whatever they want. They have 100%. They have free choice. So I don't have to worry what someone's going to say. If I defend what the Torah says, just by saying this is what it says, this is what it means, they say, I think that's rubbish. I think this. And they start saying, no, that's not my problem. You said what the Torah says. You understand what the Torah says. Right? They don't like it. What my Rebbe say? Go eat kugel. Okay, you don't like it. Very good. What can I do? Someone, me, a few weeks back, what's going on, all these protests here against against judicial reform. Blocking up the country and all kinds of things. And the person's like, I hate the right in America, I hate the right in Israel, fanatics, this, that. So I asked them, I said, well, are you aware like what the Supreme Court here does? Not going to get into politics. I said, this happened in America. They were throwing them out. Imagine Congress makes a whole bunch of laws, pass a whole bunch of laws. Supreme Court says, no. Survey says, right? And the Supreme Court knocks out all these things. Congress is like, they're like lame duck over here. They can't pass anything because the Supreme Court can knock it out. It'll never happen because of checks and balances. Israel doesn't have checks and balances. We don't have a constitution. We don't even have a constitution over here, right? But they've stuck their nose 100 times, 1,000 times at things that they have no jurisdiction over. Even the left agrees, right? You got cronyism. You got you got Supreme Court judges appointing other Supreme Court judges. Well, who do you think they're going to pick? People against them? people who want to do other things? Of course not. They're going to pick people that are the same. And they think the same way. That's called cronyism. It's corruption. So they're trying to stop it. So the left say, no, let's have a debate. This, that, we don't go too far. They agree there's a problem. 100%. They don't disagree. They're just saying you're going to go too far, too fast. And so I asked this person very nicely. I said, well, obviously you must be aware because this is really what's going on. And they've never heard this perspective. They've only heard the other perspective. Right? So that was it. That was the end of the conversation. Did I make more of an enemy? No, they still think I'm a fanatic. Right? I didn't convince them. But if you're going to be knowledgeable, be knowledgeable. If you're not, you're going to, or someone will say, same person said, similar thing. This is what I believe in my heart. Okay. You want to bring a source? You want to tell me why? What classical sources say? We'll have a discussion. But just because you believe it, who says it's right? But that's what my heart tells me. Your heart tells you intermarriage is wrong, right? You'll agree to that. And when someone intermarries, you're going to say we're going to welcome as part of the family. That's in your heart to do the right thing. But doesn't the Torah say half a dozen times or more you're not allowed to intermarry? Yes. Isn't it a severe prohibition to be intermarried? Yes. That's what we're arguing about. So he's saying, but I can never say anything bad again. This is a very nice person. I didn't say they weren't. And even if they are, so that doesn't change anything. But I would never break up family because of it. Okay, again, did God speak on Mount Sinai? Did he give the Torah? Is this right or wrong? It's wrong. According to the Bible, it's wrong. Very good. They agreed. They agreed it's wrong. They're much older. Okay. They agreed it's wrong. But they're going to say, you got to be a little more open-minded. It's not the other person's fault they're not Jewish. Right? 100%. It's a Jew's problem. They're with them. That's the problem. But you don't break up family. Can you go to that wedding? Are you allowed to go to that wedding? If you represent the Torah, how can you go? Like a friend of mine I went to yeshiva with, went to his sister's wedding, told me she intermarried. He told me I was there under protest. Everybody knew I was there under protest. I was like, you had your kosher food under protest. You're doing the whole dancing with everyone under protest. Right? Why did he say it's under protest? Because he didn't want to stir things up. I get it. It's a lot of parental pressure, a lot of family pressure. If a person feels like they have to go, how can you go? You're an Orthodox Jew. How can you step foot in such a place? Right? How can a former Christian go into a church? Someone gets married. There's a wedding ceremony. It's a religious ceremony. How can they go in? Can't. Yeah, but it's this, it's that. No, forbidden. Finished. Nothing to talk about a Jew, right? But certainly a non-Jew finished. They're not allowed to. Yeah, but there's no buts. Sometimes we have to do things and we have to take stands that are not popular. I've done it a lot of times. Trust me, I didn't come out smelling like a rose, most of them. But okay. Either the Torah is true or it's not. If it's make-believe and fantasy, fine. Right? So what's in a person's heart may be totally wrong. Maybe absolutely wrong. And the mind knows it. So how does the mind convince the heart? Because there's a lot of pressure on the heart, a lot of desire, a lot of other things that the heart is thinking over here, wanting to do. And the mind's saying, no, can't do it. Not just, you're going to fry now forever, but yeah, it's going to have a negative effect. But then it's, but there's pressure. Got all this pressure. People are saying things. People are, whatever. It's all true. Right? We're not denying that. It may 100% be true. But at the end of the day, is it the right thing to do? Am I going in the right path? Is God going to be proud of me when I do this or not? That's the question. And if you have a doubt, whether it's going to be good or bad, though, first has to ask. To ask someone. But you have to see, is this going to affect me in a negative way? In my observance to Torah mitzvahs or not? That's the question. That's the most important thing. How does this affect how I serve God? Huge thing. And if it's bad for me, just like smoking, you don't do it. Oh, but it's very tempting. Very tempting. It's going to shorten your life. Okay. I remember once heard a lecture from somebody, whatever, a doctor, this is years ago, and he was saying, spoke for an hour about the bad effects of smoking. This is before it all came out, and then after the lecture, 10 minutes later, he lights a cigarette. This doctor lights a cigarette. The way went up to him and said, I don't understand. You just spoke for an hour of all the dangers. What it's going to do, it's going to shorten your life, all these things. He said, you're right. And it's bad, and everything I said is true. But he said, if I were to give that up, it's so enjoyable, I'd rather cut 10 years off my life than give it up. So what does that mean? They're steeped in a desire that's bad, that has a negative effect, and the heart controls the mind. Because the mind, he's got all this evidence, huge amount of evidence to say that it's bad, what the effect is, all these different things. And the heart says, you're right, it's wrong, it's bad, but also there's nicotine, makes it addictive, it's very hard to fight against. Okay, makes it very hard, very good. But at the same time, what happens over here? The heart, knocks off the mind. Because the mind says you're going to die. The mind says you're going to cut down your life. 10 years, 15 years, whatever. That's exactly what you're going to do. And the heart says, yeah, just enjoy it. You're not here that long. Maybe they'll even quote King David. King David said here 70 years. If you have strength, 80 years. Very good. So you're going to say, okay, so I'll take 60. I'll take 60 years. I got another 20 to go, let's say. Got another 25 to go. I'll take 60. I'll give up the other 10, 15 or whatever because this is just too enjoyable. That's insanity. But really it isn't. Why? So even if you say there's something addictive in it and it's very hard to fight, the heart desires so much that it goes totally against what the mind says. Because the mind says it's wrong. The mind says it's destructive. The mind says it's going to kill you. And the heart says you're right. 100%. It's totally going to destroy me. It's going to kill me. And I'll get cancer and all these other things. It's going to take away years of my life. But what can I do? It's so enjoyable. I'm not willing to give it up. So the heart's in control. So you're going to say, well, isn't the heart in control of all things? The heart desires. The heart wants certain things. Okay. So now there has to be that connection. Because if I don't have a connection between the mind and the heart, who are you going to go after? The heart. The heart's going to win out. Say, just a little bit of fun. Just a little bit of enjoyability. Just a little bit of this. And then the next thing you know, person is just like totally sacrifice things they didn't want to sacrifice. Just a little bit of, take someone who's a gambler. Yeah, I'm going to win it in the next one. Going to win it in the next one. Next thing they know, they lose almost everything till they hit rock bottom. It's like anything, right? You do it a little bit, a person goes like, no, it's not going to have that effect. And snowballs. They can totally snowball. So here the Mishnah says, I see there are a bunch of questions here I'll deal with. The Mishnah says to have a good heart, right? They have a good heart, but the heart's the source. The heart's the source of everything we do. Now you're going to tell me, isn't it true? Which I didn't really, get to, but I'll mention now. Isn't it really true we have different limbs? Not just the heart. I got hands, I got feet, I got my brain, many different limbs, many different parts of the body. But guess what? These parts of the body are controlled by the heart. They're dependent on the heart. Even if these things work and they function properly at the highest level, and the heart stops to function in a major way, or God forbid it stops, and that's it, then the other parts of the body die. Because they're totally dependent on the heart. So the heart over here is the source of everything. And that's why Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, right at the end of the Mishnah says, right, the next statement, he says, he, meaning Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, said to them, I prefer the words of Eliezer ben Arach to your words, for your words are included in his words. So meaning, a good eye, a good neighbor, a good friend, one who considers the outcome of a deed, All are dependent and are included in the fact that a person has a good heart. So Rabbi Yochanan says that's the greatest thing. That's the greatest thing to go after in this Mishnah. Why? Again, we're going to flush this out. But why is that? Because the heart is the source of everything. Everything depends on the heart, even the brain. Now you're going to say, isn't it true you have a heart to brain or a brain to heart disconnect? Okay. There's going to be a constant battle. Battle of good versus, the evil inclination and what the heart wants. Okay. Right? That's very true. But without the heart, the brain doesn't function. No other part of the body functions. So the important thing over here is, as Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai says, these words are included in everything. The words are, if everybody else are included in this, that the heart's the source, and if the heart's bad, and the heart is corrupt, which it could be, if that's true, then guess what? You're in trouble. You are in serious trouble because the heart's in control. Heart's in total control over here, right? That's one thing, right? That's one thing here. But I want to take, I see there are a bunch of questions here. Someone here mentions, okay, first thing is, when their husband died, what's the question? I touched him, I can't visit a mikveh. Should I even enter a synagogue? Why not? We're all in the state of impurity. Let's remember one thing. We're all in the state of impurity. Right? So therefore, a Jew can never go on the Temple Mount. Even if you go to the mikveh, you stay there for a month. You snorkel there. You can't go to the mikveh. You're still in a state of impurity. Certain things, a mikveh can help to make pure from someone's impure, i.e. a woman. Right? In other words, she stops seeing blood. She waits another 7 days. She can be together with her husband. So she could go to the mikveh. That helps. Question is, why does that help? That's the whole question. Why should that help? If other things it doesn't help, the mikveh doesn't help, why should it help for this? Okay, another topic here. Right? So going into a synagogue, so what? We're all impure. Every single person today is impure. If anyone's gone to a funeral, they come in close contact with a dead body. Yeah. So you wash your hands. Who says you have to go to the mikveh? Who says you have to go to the mikveh and you can't go to synagogue afterward? Right? Going to a cemetery, yeah, there's certain impurity there. You have to wash your hands. Okay. Right? Does that purify the body? No. Should a person go to the mikveh? Doesn't help. People, if they come after a funeral, they're not going to the mikveh. So that means they can go to a synagogue. Doesn't matter because we're all in the state of impurity. Even if a woman, a Jewish woman, let's say, we'll make it easy. Jewish woman never practiced family purity laws, never went to the mikveh, let's say. Can't go to a synagogue? Why not? So there is a leniency. Let's say, she probably went to the ocean one time in her life. Right? Probably went under the water. That would be considered a mikveh. But again, there are other things we could probably point out to that, that wouldn't make a difference. And even if she didn't, let's say she never went to the ocean. Let's say she was in a pool. There's no filter. It's probably almost impossible. But let's say, and she went into a natural body of water, spring. Does that help? Doesn't help. Right? So, she doesn't go underwater, whatever. Doesn't help over here. And even if she did, so there's a certain level of purity there. Well, there's also a certain level of impurity. But even if she never did, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The fact is that a woman would be allowed to go to synagogue. A guy would be allowed to go to synagogue. If he didn't go to the mikveh, so what? And that doesn't change anything. Doesn't change the status. Because we've all, mostly everybody except for Kohanim, have come in contact with dead bodies. Okay. Right? So going to the mikveh does not take off that impurity. So then the question would be, so how can they go to synagogue? That's not a problem. We live in a state of impurity. That's the way it is. There's nothing changed that. I've heard people say, well, let's build a temple, let's change it. You can't. That's one of the things the Messiah has to do. So that's never going to change. I mean, let's say better. It will change when the Messiah comes. Very good. According to that, you can never pray. You say, well, I won't go to synagogue, I'll pray outside. I can pray anywhere. True. But if you're in a state of impurity, how can you pray? That would be the question. You shouldn't be allowed to pray. Right? You're right. Going to synagogues, there's extra level of holiness there. You have the Torah scrolls there and the Ark. Very true. That 100% is true. At the same time, even if a person wasn't pure, they could go in. There is a question. If a woman had when she has a period, she shouldn't touch the Sefer Torah. Shouldn't touch the Torah scroll. Yeah, okay. Right? Doesn't mean she can't come to the synagogue. The Torah doesn't mean that. Right? So even to come in contact with a dead body, let's say, going, you say going to the mikveh helps, but you're still in a certain level of impurity, even going to the mikveh. Right? So that does not disqualify a person. That does not disqualify a person from going to synagogue. Someone asked, what about the 6-day war? Okay, that was an open miracle. Yeah, but I'm talking about an open miracle, open miracle of, that we celebrate. That's a holiday. That's not a holiday. I mean, a lot of people here, they celebrate it, but, so what? Ultra-Orthodox Jews don't celebrate it in any way. It's not like they make a barbecue or different things. Listen, the state of Israel is a miracle. The fact that it still exists. See all these terrorist attacks going on, etc. But it's still a miracle that it exists. Are we basing any holidays on that? No. I was talking specifically about open miracles that have to do with holidays. I should have made that clear. A lot of things are, we live in a world of Hester b'toch Hester panim. We're living in a world where God's presence is really hidden. So you're going to say, well, that's an open miracle. A lot of people would agree. Maybe even secular people would agree, right? Or they'll say, it's power of the army and different things, and they made this decision and whatever, changed the tide of the war. Yeah, a lot of people would say, so what? Well, even if they admit, it's an open miracle. We're talking about an open miracle when it comes to a holiday, right? That last open miracle was talking about what? Was talking about Hanukkah. But you will have people that speak about the fact that it wasn't God, it was mighty Israeli army. They're the ones that did it. They're the ones that came up with this idea. But obviously, it's very hard to say. Very hard to say if you know what's going on during the time. And the Egyptians retreated and different things. They could have destroyed most of the country easily. And they went back based on, they backtracked based on things they thought they saw and they didn't see. They saw things that, weren't there, like the boogeyman. They saw things that they thought were there and weren't there. And, that was the beginning of the end. Someone asks, Exodus chapter 30, verse 15, says, who are to give a half shekel, right, for the atonement of the soul? Was everybody on the same level financially coming out of Egypt? We're talking about a case where they're not on the same level, or where they are poor people, right? And if they didn't have to give, they gave less, right? So you're going to say, well, wasn't everyone on the same level? It doesn't seem that way. Definitely doesn't seem that way. And if they couldn't, you see also if a person didn't have, money for certain sacrifice, they gave, minimal things. You're talking, when they have that obligation, we're not talking about when they're in the desert. This is talking about where there was a collection for sacrifice for the sake of the temple. We're talking about a later time. We're not talking about when they're in the desert, but if they're in the desert, you're right. Right? If they're in the desert, then everyone's being treated the same. That would be true. The Kohanim would be taken care of in different ways. Because of sacrifices and people have to support them. But at the same time, in such a case over here, such a case over here, you say, yeah, well, if they're on the same level, but we're not talking about that time period. We're talking about a later time, time when the temple's going to exist, and they're going to have to give this half shekel. Not when they're in the desert. If they're in the desert, it's a good question. It'd be a good question if everyone's on the same level, but we're not talking about that time period. Someone asks, one second. Someone asks, what if you do for the sake of heaven? You learn Torah, it makes you weak. Again, what does that mean? It makes you weak, right? Let's understand. Person sits, they're learning. Let's say they're learning with something, going back and forth for hours on different things. They're looking up things and this and that. Makes you tired. It's a physical thing. It makes you tired because you're using as many brain cells as possible and trying to think, okay, what does this mean? What does that mean? How does it mean? They disagree, they don't disagree, the repercussions are not repercussions, for what someone says. These things, why does it make you weaker? Why does it make the body weaker? Because it takes great effort. It takes a lot of effort. You're not just sitting there being spoon-fed. It also takes effort. To be able to listen and understand, it also takes effort. A lot of things take effort. Right? But when you're using brain cells and you use, you try and maximize, what do we use? How much of our brain do we really use? I've seen brought down, they say 3%. 3% of our brain we actually use. So you want to try and maximize as much brain capacity as possible. But again, learning Torah is hard. Concepts are difficult. They're not according to the way we normally think. It's complex. Right? Laws of damage is extremely complex. So when a person's thinking these different things, not just like, oh, it's just like reading a newspaper. I don't have to think it. A person has to think deep. What does it mean? All these different things. It's hard. Because when a person's tired, it's hard to learn. So you're going to say, okay, if I get 8 hours of sleep, you get enough sleep, you eat the right things, you're prepared, you're fresh. It doesn't go in so easy. There are a lot of different factors involved in so many different things. It's taxing on the brain. So what happens when you're working on a problem and it's taxing on the brain? You get tired. That's what happens. Right? So you eat something, you drink coffee, you walk around, you try and think about it, in different ways. It makes you tired. So the question is, okay, that's first part. Question is, does Hashem help you to be strong because you sacrifice yourself? And how do you know to sacrifice yourself when you're hurting yourself? Yeah, these are not so easy questions. In other words, you're right. Learning Torah, as we said, makes the person weaker. Right? You have to put in great effort. When you put in great effort, God's going to help you. God's going to open doors. Now, you could be led down the wrong path. You could be thinking in a certain way, which is actually wrong. Okay, that's also part of learning, right? It's making mistakes. So that's where you need guidance in such a case. But yeah, when a person learns, I would say like this, that we're, superhuman strength, I'm not talking about where, I'll give an example. The Chazon Ish of Avraham Shai Karlitz, a blessed memory, was the Torah giant of the last generation here in Israel, according to everybody. And he was, relatively speaking, his whole life was very weak. He never had good health. Right? He never had good health. How did he become as great as he was? He put maximum effort in learning, in prayer. A lot of times after he prayed, he'd be drenched in sweat, that he needed to rest because that's how much effort he put into prayer. Something we can't really imagine. But he was weak by nature. Now that means, he learned around the clock, and he got 2 hours of sleep a night. I don't know if he got that small amount of sleep. There were stories when he couldn't learn anymore, he would crawl into bed. That was it. There's one time, they found him on the floor, asleep, halfway between, the table he's learning at in his bed. Right? So what happened? They asked him. Chazon Ish said, I thought I had more strength than I had, and he didn't. And he got caught. He couldn't make it to the bed. But he learned with every ounce of effort he had. And he was a weak person. Did God turn him into Superman? No. Did not turn him into a superhuman being. He used as much strength as he had. So you see, Even God forbid, if a person's weak, they can maximize, even in that state. They have help, it's true. God will help them. He's not going to, not necessarily change their nature. Certainly overnight. His nature stayed the same. He was weak his whole life till he died. He was never strong. In general. There are other people that can learn all day, hours on end. Stay up till 2, 3 in the morning and get 2 hours of sleep and continue. They're not the majority of people. But that, does God give them strength? Yeah. He can certainly help them. Right? But you got to help yourself in the process. Famous story, Rabbi Yosef Rosen, a blessed memory, known as the Rugged Shop. He wanted to stay up late or whatever. So what did he do? His hair was very long. He attached to, he had a ponytail, whatever. He didn't want to get a haircut for whatever reason. And he attached his ponytail to a nail. And he stood in cold water. So, he'd stay awake. So anytime, God forbid, he got tired and he would nod off, he'd be pulled by his hair. Now, is that for most people? Should we imitate that? No. We're not holding there. We're not close. Not even close. Right? But there are people that, based on their nature, did unbelievable self-sacrifice. Unbelievable self-sacrifice. Pouring hours upon hours. There are stories of people could stand for 6 hours straight, deep in thought. And maybe they have to look something up, whatever, but hours upon hours, standing. We don't have that strength. Most people don't. But I'm not talking that far back. I'm not talking 200 years ago. There are people that had that kind of strength, and they could stand, all day, pretty much all day, learning, thinking more. Okay. We live in a cream puff generation. We're not holding there. Right? We have to try and maximize whatever we can do. Now, someone asks, how do you know when you have to sacrifice yourself when you're hurting yourself? So, yeah, that's a good question. Because, the evil inclination will say, yeah, learn as much as possible, get inspired, etc. Stay up late at night, get very little sleep. And what happens? The person could destroy themselves. Totally destroy the body. Why would they destroy the body? Because the body can't handle it. Body can totally not handle it, right? In general, body's still weak. So the, in that sense, it's bad. Because, like I mentioned last week, somebody, I know somebody wanted to say Tikkun Chatzos every night. All these prayers about, sitting on the ground and thinking about the destruction of the temple. Now, you get up in the middle of the night to do that, throws you off. It can totally throw you off. So Victor Miller, blessed memory, said, yeah, you want to do it? 5 minutes. 5 minutes a night before you go to sleep, sit on the floor, think about it, go to sleep. That's it. That's where our generation told it. Person says, no, I really want to do it. It's a big thing. You're right. It's a big thing. I agree. There's so many other things to work on. But that's going to throw a person's whole system off. So now I'll take a nap. I'll do this. See, that's what the evil inclination wants. The evil inclination wants you to take on things you can't do. And then it's going to throw you off. Yeah, a person did it for a couple of days. They feel really good. They want to add on some more of this, that. What happens? 2 days later, they crash. And then they're in bed for like 10 hours because they can't function. They totally can't function. Right? They take someone like me. I'm like the Energizer Bunny. I keep going until I drop. Right? But there are times I'm just, very tired. So how do you get up? So I take cat naps here, there, whatever it is. And sometimes if I have to, before I have to go to pray or whatever, I get 20 minutes, half an hour. And I can't move. I'll stop. A person has to know themselves. But it is a good part of the evil inclination. The evil inclination trying to convince you of so many things. So many things, but it has a negative effect. Can definitely have a negative effect. So they have to know. They have to know when, where, you say, oh, I'm doing it for the sake of heaven. Could very well be. I'm not even arguing that point. Could very well be. Even if it's for the sake of heaven, doesn't mean the evil inclination is not trying to get you. Right? The Rambam says you need 8 hours of sleep a night. Now, how many people get 8 hours of sleep a night? Don't know. Never took a survey. A person can train themselves to limit the amount of sleep they need in order to function. But at the same time, you want to maximize as much as possible. No matter how much you sleep. right? You want to try and max. Obviously, the more sleep, the better. You don't want to oversleep. And some people may, need, like a power nap, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. You just might be so tired. You got to put your head down for a little bit. And, but it's, it's hard. The person can say, well, maybe I'm not cut out to learn. You got to put in effort. And even, you got to know what your body can take. Because there are times we're going to do that and we think we're doing it for the sake of heaven, which we might be. But it takes a tremendous toll on the body. Well, person can't do that. It's, going to have such negative effect. It depends. A person should eat right. A person should exercise. Doesn't mean learning is not going to make you tired. It's never going to make you tired. Right? But you want to take care of the body in the best way possible. When you do that, you give it a fair shot. And there are people who don't take care of their bodies. That's just, it's just what it is. I'm not going to say everybody. Right? But, a person has to know themselves. So that I can't answer, But I will say that the evil inclination does a lot of things here. Does a lot of things to convince the person, right, to do something that's not good for them. Right? The person will say, but how do I know? How do I know it's not for the sake of heaven? Or it's a work of the evil inclination. So a person's not sure. They have to ask. Depends on the situation. Again, I'm just speaking in generalities. They could think the person may think it's the greatest thing, and it's not. It can have a tremendously negative effect. Even though they're convinced it's the right thing. But, so what's going to happen? So I'll tell you. They're convinced, they do it for a certain amount of time, and they crash. And there are people in the conversion process, they want to jump levels and are ready for it. So what happens? People could try and do this, try and do that, go to synagogue all the time. You don't follow, you're not able to follow, you can't keep up, and all these things. I keep doing it, and what happens? You fall flat in your face. You say, I keep doing it, I'm not getting any better. And it's having a negative effect. I want to pray, I want to have this connection, but I can't even do it. I don't know when to stand, when to sit, how these other things work, all these things. True. So you got to take it in sound bites. You can't do everything at once. I understand a person wants to make up for lost time. And they want to work hard and they want to do all these things. Very good. Very, very good. But you can't do that. Because if you go too hard, too fast, you fall and burn. That's what happens. It's the greatest of intention people have. I'm not denying that. They can have the greatest of intention. And guess what? They get demolished. Because they can't keep it up. And then what does the evil inclination come and say? It's too hard. It was too hard. You can't do it. You're never going to do it. They're never going to accept you. Right? As part of the community. You have no consistency. And then families start getting involved in other things. And then you get beaten down. So you take it in sound bites. You do what you can do. You take on certain things. You work with that. You take on other things. But you can't do everything at once. Impossible. It's impossible. People say, but they say, what should I work on? So I say everything. Got to work on blessings and kashrus and Shabbos. And okay, so you got to take priority. But then I got to learn Hebrew also. Right. So you got to fit it all in. But I only have a certain amount of time. What do I do? Okay, so you have to make out this, it has to be discussed. What's the most important thing right now? And if you have time, you work on this. Okay, there's hierarchy. Person has to know how to pray. True. How are you going to learn Hebrew? Okay, that's the only thing I don't teach. But you're going to have to pick up Hebrew somewhere. You have to know how to follow a service. You have to know what to do. It's not easy. And it's very frustrating. I've heard many people say, and it's true, come out of Christianity, paganism, wherever they come from. And now what do they want to do? They're able to go to synagogue. So they go to synagogue. So, wow. So, they want to get inspired by the prayers. They see people running through the prayers. They see kids running around. No decorum. They can't follow. They don't know when to stand, sit, this, that. They say, wow, what a great experience. You got to give yourself, time. And a lot of time. It takes time and effort. But the evil inclination says, see, you're totally lost. They just run through the prayers. No one's thinking about what they're saying. Kids are running around, making ruckus, making a noise, making all kinds of noise. You're going to say, this is what I signed up for. No, you come back next week and it's worse. Or even better, you go to a kiddush. Right? Let's say you go to a synagogue, they have a kiddush for I don't know, a bunch of synagogues have kiddush every week. People socialize, different things, and to see how people eat. When someone once told me, I was looking for a yeshiva to go to, I was looking to changes. The first thing you have to do is go to the cafeteria, eat with them. He said, if you can eat with them, you can learn with them. You can say, what about manners? Shouldn't people have manners? Of course they should have manners. One of my personal pet peeves, walk in the synagogue and people who like sneeze on you, cough, they don't cover themselves, this, that. It's annoying. Yeah, you're not going to change, you're not going to fight City Hall over it. There are people like that. It's annoying. I'm not going to say not. One of my personal pet peeves. Okay. But you have to try and spin it in a positive light, even though it's annoying. So a person will see what people do and how they eat, and they're going to say, this is what I'm giving up my life for. This is what I'm willing to change. Everyone would say if a non-Jew goes into a Jewish community and they still want to be Jewish, either they're 100% the real deal or a little bit wacko, because they see how Jews act. Jews say things they shouldn't say. Even Orthodox Jews, they do things they shouldn't do. Look at them at a kiddush, how they eat, how they grab things. You're right. These are issues. We're not perfect. We're not perfect by any stretch. So people say, don't mix up Jews and Judaism. You're right. That is 100% true. At the same time, it could not a person get annoyed by it. It's also part of the inclination. On top of everything else, they're never going to accept you. You're not consistent. You'll never learn Hebrew. All these things. Say, look at how they eat. Look at how they dress. Look how they walk around. A lot of guys have scraggly beards. True. Could be true. Okay. People get caught up in externals, as well. And the truth is, we should be picture perfect. We should always do the right thing. We don't. A lot of times, God forbid, we don't. Right? So people understand that, but again, it can get under their skin. They're saying they can get away with it, but I can't do it. And if I do that, rabbinical court's going to look at me this way, that way, the other way. Okay? Membership has privileges, right? Membership has privileges. But doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Anyone coming in, we ourselves have to be the best we can be. And we're not always the best we can be. A lot of things going on. A lot of things going on that we fail at. Okay? I still have to go pray. I still have to keep kosher. I still have to do other things. But it's kind of hard, someone looking on the outside and seeing this, what it is. It's like I used to sit with my rabbi in the rabbinical court for 5 years, once a week. And what do we see? People who stole, people who lied, people who cheated. And he always would say, it's a good thing you have a connection to me. Because if you didn't, you'd say, why did I become religious? Why did I change around my life? Right? It's the whole thing. It's a whole thing. And just because, these ultra-Orthodox Jews, they were all ultra-Orthodox Jews, do the wrong thing. Some of them doing the wrong thing. What does that have to do with me? I've heard people say, I heard the Orthodox Jews do this, do that. Why would I convert? That's not the question. That's not the question. If you want to convert, convert. Just because people do the wrong thing, that has nothing to do with conversion. That's what people have to understand. Yeah, but they did this and they did that. And this is horrible. And I've heard horror stories. You're right. I'm not denying that. There may be a lot of things we do wrong and that people do wrong. So you don't want to convert. Don't convert. That's your choice. Right? But keep in mind, one thing has nothing to do with another. I heard someone once say, a secular Jew once say, Orthodox Jews do this, got caught doing this, caught doing that. I don't do that. I don't do those negative things. So I don't have to keep as much Torah mitzvahs. My kesher. What's the connection? God's not going to ask that question after 120 years. He's going to ask, why didn't you do what you need to do? That's what he's going to ask. He's not going to ask why this person did what they did. He'll get them for whatever they did. That's not your problem. God's going to take care of business. It doesn't need me to say that. He'll take care of business. But even if he takes care of business, and they got caught and they're going to pay the price, what does that have to do with my observance? So I've gotten this a lot also. You'll say, but look what this person did. Okay, it's wrong. Let's say 100% it's wrong. They got convicted. It's wrong. They go into jail, whatever the case is. Look at the tragedy. I agree. I would agree. Okay. So what does that have to do with you? They say, well, it makes Jews really look bad. Okay, not denying that. But is that going to stop you from praying every day? Is that going to stop you from keeping kosher? Well, it's a terrible thing. Okay, so what? A lot of terrible things go on. Okay, not going to deny it, right? You might give a kvetch and a sigh and say, oh, whatever it is, you know what? Come the next 8 hours, I'm going to have to get up and go pray. No matter what someone else did. It's irrelevant what someone else did. I still have obligation. And someone from the outside looking in, again, to me, it's a cop-out, because if they have the opportunity to convert and they don't, they're in trouble. Meaning, let's say, they could move and all the other things, but they make excuses. No, do they have to convert? No. They don't have an obligation to convert, right? But it's a skewed mentality. People will say, look what this person did, that person did. So what? What does it do with anything? It's irrelevant. And what if they did something to you? Okay, they caused you damage. Okay. They're liable. God's going to take care of them, right? In this world and the next. We don't have to worry about that. Can it leave a bad taste in your mouth? Yeah. Certainly can. People are people. That's one way you test a person, is by what they do with their pocket, with money, and how they deal with others. Right? It's tragic. I'm not going to say not. Seen a number of things that make me want to puke, but what are you going to do? It's what it is. Does that do anything to my faith? Not at all. Because I don't have to answer for them. I have to answer for myself. That's going to be hard enough after 120 years. Person does something wrong, if they're liable, they're liable. God going to take care of them? Yeah. But whatever they did has nothing to do with me. Has nothing to do with my observance. And people are going to make that excuse. Some people. But this Orthodox Jew did that. Okay, what does that have to do with your life? Shouldn't have anything to do with your life. But people use an excuse. See, they did that. I don't do that. I don't have to do anything. That's nothing. That is zero. God's going to judge them however he judges them. Yeah, somebody asks, what divine physical effects do we get more of on Shabbos and Yom Tov when we study Torah? Oh, I just saw that brought down today. That there's an obligation to learn Torah more on Shabbos and festivals than any other time. Because there's a spiritual influence, very high spiritual influence. And the Torah that you learn, I saw brought down, allows you to learn better, learn stronger, come up with novel ideas in Torah. That's where novel ideas come from for the Torah you learn on Shabbos. That's what I saw brought down today. Because it's got an unbelievable spiritual influence. Because the person has to tap into Shabbos. If a person doesn't learn that much during the week, you got to tap in. That's your opportunity to learn. And that can spark a person to want to learn more. And do more things. So it's a spiritual influence. How can I explain that? I can't. Why? If a person made cholent, let's say, it's a mixture of beans, barley, meats, spices, etc. The more you cook it, the better it is. You eat it on Sunday, you warm it up, doesn't taste the same. How do you explain that? Because Shabbos is a different thing. Shabbos is a different influence. Can't explain it in physical terms. Right? I'm just saying what I saw brought down. So, you can say, how does that work? You have to remember. God created the world. The world was not solidified till day 6. Right? Till after day 6. Everything was in a state of flux till the Jewish people God saw in the future. Jewish people are going to accept Shabbos. We're going to accept Shabbos. We're going to solidify the world. The creation. Right? When God created the world. So according to Kabbalah, the Ramchal says in Derech Hashem, the Ramchal says like this. The Ramchal says that really every day we have a psalm. We say this day to Shabbos, that day to Shabbos, till we get to Shabbos. So when does the week start? Where does the power of the week start? Starts from the previous Shabbos. In other words, this Shabbos we just finished, at least for us here in Israel, some other places, that Shabbos, when it's finished, gives the world the solidification and all the influence from that Shabbos, from this Shabbos. Right? Solidifies the whole world, keeps everything in flux. As So you're going to say, how exactly does that work? It's Kabbalah. How does it work? It's a good question, right? But that's what's brought down. Shabbos has a power, has a real power. Person taps in not just by sleeping all day, but if a person taps in, I had most of my family here today, right? Last night, today, for some of the meals. So there it's like, okay, I got, grandkids running around, screaming, this, that, singing, saying words of Torah, having a nice meal. That's the power. You see it works, right? You got to, rejuvenate the body, but it has that. How can I explain it in physical terms? Anyone who observes Shabbos and they see it, they go to people's homes, they see it. Can you explain that in physical terms? You can in a certain way. You can say, listen, I saw kids answering questions. They were singing. They were attentive. They left the table, came back. All these things. They saw a whole picture. A whole picture. Can you explain that in physical terms? Very hard. Very hard. You got to say it was great food. It was nice conversation. See how the husband and wife respect each other and how the kids interact. And, all these things. It's a beautiful thing to see. Can you explain it in physical terms? Very hard. Very hard in different ways. Very, very hard. And a person points out, Talmud mentioned the lower pulse and better digestion. Is this more on Shabbos? Well, you eat more on Shabbos. So I always say, I'll eat a lot more, give it to my extra soul, but then you put on weight. How does that work? You say, after Shabbos, the soul goes out. So I said, yeah. So I just give it all my extra weight. He said, yeah, I tried that. Doesn't work. Okay, we got to exercise, other things. Right? How does it work more? I don't know. I can't answer that. Right? The fact you have a lower pulse and better digestion, I don't know. I know people eat certain things that have bad digestion on Shabbos. Because they eat different things. Right? Could that be? I'm not denying it. Could be. Could very well be. But a person shouldn't be, eating a ton of stuff while they're learning. I mean, if a person feels that they're getting weaker or whatever, they need, take a coffee, some tea, or, eat something, give them a little bit of strength. That's okay. Right. That you're allowed to. Right. I would think just the opposite in a certain way. When a person's learning Torah and you're learning with somebody, right? You're learning with somebody, then it can get very heated. Discussions can get very heated. Right. So I would say that their blood pressure is not so low. If you're learning, a person learning themselves and they're singing a tune and they're getting into things, okay, maybe you have a little bit lower of blood pressure, whatever, lower pulse, whatever it is. But anyone's ever walked into a yeshiva and you see what goes on and you see how people, learn and people yelling and screaming this and that, if you were to take their pulse, I don't think their pulse is very slow. I'm not denying it. I'm just saying that there are people that are, very active in this and that, and that wouldn't be the case. That wouldn't be the case. But I would say, yeah, you're more relaxed on Shabbos. You're 100% more relaxed. That I get. Right? You're not up running around doing all kinds of other things. Again, you have 3 meals. You have a meal at night, a meal during the day, and a meal before, the end of Shabbos. So there's a lot of things. You're relaxed. You're enjoying people's company, or even if you're, by yourself, whatever the case. It's a totally different day. It's a slower day. People get up later. People take naps. It's a totally different thing. It's a totally different thing. Right? So that I would agree that if that would be the case, you're going at a slower pace. You're not running out here, there. Okay, you have to go pray. True. Person wants to go learn, you got to go out to learn, or if you can learn at home or whatever the case is. Okay. But it's a much, much slower pace. Much slower pace. Right? So I would agree. Right? That makes sense. That would definitely make sense. That would make sense. But the way, people learn and what goes on, and you got arms flailing and you got people screaming and yelling and all kinds of things, I would think their pulse is not. That wouldn't be the case. Right? I would think their pulse is, going up exponentially. That's what I would think. Right? But I would not disagree, the fact on Shabbos, it's easier. Shabbos is a lot easier. Why? Because it's a lot easier. Why? Very simple. You're not going out. You're not running around. You're not doing things. You're more home, right? But there are plenty of people came Shabbos, ate their meals relatively quick, had discussion with their family and this and that, went to learn, spent hours learning, right? So yeah, it's a slower pace, definitely a slower pace, but even on Shabbos, go to synagogue, go to a study hall, I see people, learning together, and they're not just learning in a docile way, they're getting excited about what they're learning. Like I say, it's a much harder thing in a certain way, true. Right? I don't think there's any question. Right? You have to, even if you're learning something you don't really relate to. So you're gonna say, well, if I don't really relate to it, it's not the same. Don't get it as excited. Okay. There are things more exciting, less exciting, whatever it is. But a person has to be into it. Torah has the ability, we said before. Torah has the ability to totally change a person, to totally uproot sin, because it's like pure fire. So that doesn't mean you have to be yelling and screaming, right? You have to be into things. You have to live it. If you don't live it, it's just, mental gymnastics. So what? That's all it is. Like another topic. It's another discipline, right? Like learning math, God forbid, or science or anything else. It's like another discipline. No. Torah has the absolute ability to change people. I'm not going to say overnight. It's going to take time. It takes effort. You got to absorb. Torah is not an easy thing to absorb. I once, saw someone, walking around the study hall with a, tractate of Talmud on their head. So I said, what are you doing? He said, osmosis. I'm going to get it through osmosis. I'm like, no. Open it up, sit down, get to work. You got to work. People say, yeah, but it's hard. And how do I know this? There are a lot of things we don't know. You know what? You just got to sit down and learn. That's what you got to do. Can't worry about these extraneous things. Because if you worry about all these extraneous things, again, I understand where people are coming from. And I get questions like this all the time. How do I know this? How do I know that? Maybe I'm feeling this. We don't have to over psychoanalyze. That's what the Yetzer Hara wants. Maybe I'm not doing it right. Maybe I'm not doing good enough. Maybe we have OCD, right? A person's OCD. And they're doing things, they're doing it again. They're thinking, did I do it right? I didn't do it right. Drives them nuts. I get it. Because they want to do it right. How do I know really what I feel? Can I answer that? I can't answer that. I can't answer how someone feels. So someone's going to say, but isn't this the right way? Could this cause? You could. It could. There's such a thing as overanalyzing. When you overanalyze, guess what? You don't do things. You totally don't do things. Because it's too hard. Because then you're saying, maybe I did it right. Maybe I didn't do it right. How do I know I'm doing it right? How do I know I'm on the right track? Okay. Person has to ask the question. I'm not saying not. Right? But at the same time, I think people go way overboard. Way overboard. Because that's what the inclination wants. How do I know I'm doing it right? If you're not doing it right, no one will ever accept it anyway. Right? I get it. Right? But I think people get too caught up. I'm not saying be totally lax. I'm not saying that, just like kick back and sip pina coladas, do whatever you want. I'm not saying that. But a person has to be aware. There are certain things you can't know. It's impossible. Got the question, how do I know God accepted my sin? Accepted my repentance. I can't answer that. If you do what the Rambam says, or Rabbeinu Yonah says, you make amends for what you did. You say you're not going to do it again. You're going to work very hard. Yom Kippur atones. You do it to the best of your ability. That's it. Maybe I didn't do it enough, maybe. And then what? You don't repent for things you've already been accepted for forgiveness. Once forgiveness takes over, it's it. Yom Kippur came, it atoned. Maybe I didn't do it 100% the right way, or I had the right mentality. Okay. Right? We can have a lot of doubts. Doubts are not good. You do the best of your ability, you move on. Right? I'm not saying we don't necessarily get caught up in things. We do. But I would say that you can't let these things get to you. Because what it does, it makes people second guess and they don't do things. And then a whole nother list of problems crop up. Maybe I'm not good enough. Community's not going to accept it. Maybe this, maybe that. Certain things we have to do. And even if it looks bad, you have to do it. Let's say. You have to do it. And can't worry about it. But isn't it bad? If it's not bad, you have to do it. Okay. Not everything we do, goes 100% the way it should. There are certain things we have to take a stand that are hard, and that there are tremendous repercussions for such a thing. Okay. And what are you going to do? You have to do it. So I'm saying, in a case where you have to, okay. People are going to yell at you and scream at you and say things. Okay, so on. If you do what you have to do, you do it. Regardless, you got to be strong, right? We have to be strong in these days. Got to be strong like fire. And we have to do what God wants. Can't worry about what other people think. Can't worry about it. You need to do what's right. And you can't overthink it and say, oh, maybe I didn't. People are going to be upset. If you did what Das told or what rabbis told you to do, and they know what they're talking about, and you do it, you don't have to worry about it. I can tell you a number of things my rabbi told me to do. Wasn't popular. I didn't come out smelling like a rose by any stretch at all. In many ways. Okay, it's what I had to do. Right? I'm saying the majority of the time I listened. They might not have thought so, but I listened. And it was hard. I'm not going to tell you it wasn't hard. It was hard. But I did what I needed to do. Right? I did exactly what he told me to do. Did I win any awards? For drawing other people close? No. Did I get yelled at and screamed at sometimes? Yep. Did I get thrown under the bus a number of times? Yep. What are you going to do? He told me to do certain things. That's what I did. And that's it. I didn't second guess. During I believe he was right. I did what he said. I had empathy, but what can you do? There are certain things you can't change. Certain things you can't change. You cannot, as Kaufman would say, you cannot turn the Torah into a pretzel. That's it. Yeah, but this person said this and that happened. This. Okay, so you did what you need to do. Yeah, I'm going to stop there. I see I didn't get so far. We're going to have part 26 next week. We'll continue with this. Anyone have any other questions? Don't mention a certain time. Yeah, start second guessing the room in tailspin, right? That's what can happen. God does not want you to second guess. You do what you need to do. People tell you what to do. You listen to them. They know what they're talking about. That's it. That's it. It will drive you absolutely nuts. 100%. I have not thought many times. I don't have too much regret or remorse in my life. Certain things maybe I wish would have turned out differently, but when I listened to what my rabbis told me, I did it. It was hard. A lot of situations were hard, but okay. I didn't second guess. I knew this was the right thing to do. It doesn't matter. People said things, called me names, whatever. If the Torah is true, you got to keep it, even if it's hard. That's it. And we're living in a hard generation. Hard generation. I'm not going to say not. Compared to previous generation, I would say, yeah, in different ways, it's easier. But yeah, even in our generation, we have hard times. Compared to them, it's really nothing. But, in our generation, it's hard. No question. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop here. I do this every Saturday, 2:00 Eastern time, 9:00 Israel time. Tomorrow, Sunday, Book of Leviticus, chapter 16. We're going to speak 9:00 Eastern time, 4:00 Israel time. Anyone interested can take a look at my Facebook fan page, Mark Chaim Kaufman, or Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, or you can send me an email, or my YouTube channel, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism. A lot of videos on there on the Torah portion of the week and about conversion and Q&As and ethics of our fathers and all kinds of other things. So anyone interested, find me there, or you can send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBIChaimCoffman @gmail.com, whichever good